Veteran Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Veteran Entrepreneur Podcast. This is episode 3. I'm Scott Brewer. I'm your host. And today we're going to be talking about my first business, a little bit about my transition out of the Marine Corps leading up to this business, what the business was, and sort of some of the lessons that I learned. And then ultimately we'll go over some of the things that you should consider based on some of the things that I outlined from my first experience running a business. So initially when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2016, I PCS'd with my wife. She was also active duty. We went to Miami, and I initially knew I wanted to go into the field of strength and conditioning and therapy, specifically not physical therapy, but massage therapy, with the intent to not necessarily do massage, but to basically go down some really specific modalities to increase human performance for athletes and the general public alike. My focus was really to work with athletes at the college level, high school level, as well as the professional level. And in a very short amount of time, I actually was able to do that. So I just didn't have a long-term vision for the business, but we'll kind of go over that. So the business was called Elevated Movement, and I got out of massage. Well, sorry, let me back up. I went to massage school for a period of 6 months. I graduated. I got my license in massage therapy, and I was basically on the hunt for a place to open up a business. So I knew I wanted to get into the CrossFit community because there's a high level of injury. It keeps me in the strength and conditioning world, being that I was a competitive powerlifter for many years. And it's a community that I felt, I had a good understanding of. So after massage school, I ended up getting a job with a company called Stretch Zone, basically just doing table stretching, out of a storefront. And that paid pretty decently for what the job was. It was $20 an hour. I saved some money from that, and I ended up meeting a gentleman who was a podiatrist, and we sort of started going down the path of opening up a business in this CrossFit gym that I actually had been eyeing for a while. They have a very, very good reputation in South Florida. They have a great competitive program, and they also have a great, average Joe type program for, everybody of all fitness levels and in all ages. So after meeting him, we started getting to talk about business. We started to put the ball in motion. We secured an office in this particular building where this CrossFit gym was. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but ultimately it didn't end up working out with this guy. He ended up leaving, moving up to Orlando. And so I was sort of left to, fend for myself, and I thankfully had developed a really good relationship and rapport with the gym owners themselves. So they were able to accommodate me and work with me, even though I was on a really low budget, and I ultimately couldn't provide them, I guess, the type of rent that they would have had in mind normally. So the building relationship piece was huge. It's not something that should be taken lightly. All right, everything's an opportunity. Make sure you're treating it as such. Okay, don't take anything for granted. So from there, I created the business Elevated Movement. I had attended several courses that were sort of up and coming on the forefront of, therapeutic science and strength and conditioning. And so that's what I was basically tailoring my business off of, was soft tissue treatment and performance training, aimed towards competitive athletes. I didn't end up really wanting to do the massage as a modality or a revenue stream, because I just really had no passion for massage itself. So it just wasn't something I wanted to do. I didn't really see myself being all Zen-like and playing, wind chime music and rubbing people down with oil. It just wasn't really a thing that I really wanted to do. And going from the Marine Corps right into massage school was an interesting transition, because you're going from a mindset of really just an intense environment where everything is about war fighting, and having that warrior mindset to then stepping out of that and going into a massage school where everything is hold hands and sing kumbaya and, rubbing other people down with oil and all that stuff. So it was an interesting transition. It was a great transition, and it was a great learning experience because it helped me find myself again. So I have nothing ill to say about doing that. It was an awesome experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. And it sort of set me down this path of thinking about trying to groom myself into doing something bigger and better, because I had to face a lot of my own issues, and sort of being introspective through that program, of which it was required, really helped me out big time. So I had attended a bunch of courses, and I basically set out with the idea of trying to change the industry, right? So here I am, this guy who's got his massage license, not a PT, not a chiro. I'm relatively new in the game, although I've been a participant in the fitness industry at a competitive level. I set out to basically challenge the industry and the standard practices that are going on with the industry, the status quo. So, when people are saying stretch, I'm saying don't stretch, and I'm going down this path, which, scientifically I'm backed up, but I was trying to fight the industry standards. And especially in a community like CrossFit, where everybody adopts what everyone else is doing. So if Jason Khalipa's wearing, Reebok Nano 5.0s, well, guess what? The entire CrossFit community is going to wear Reebok Nano 5.0s, or whatever it is, they're going to do. They're going to mimic. So, I'm battling guys like the Supple Leopard. I'm battling foam rolling. And I'm not going to go into why, I don't particularly advocate for those types of things, but the science isn't there, right? So I'm over there trying to re-educate people, all these practitioners, even the gym owners themselves. I'm trying to convince them to adopt these practices to in turn help my business. And that was a huge, huge mistake looking back. When you get into an industry and the industry is a certain way, it's better to take a long-term approach. And I don't think I took a long-term approach. I was so short-sighted and trying to drive any business that I could with novelty and nuance that I let that cloud my decision-making process. So, I think a better approach long-term would to have been adopt the massage modality because it's a proven industry, right? So I cut off a revenue stream through that because I was so prideful about doing what I want to do and passionate about doing what I really set out to do. But not only that, trying to change somebody's mind and tell them that they're wrong is never a good way to sell yourself or sell a product or your business to somebody else. So I was going around different MMA gyms. I was down in South Florida, so I went to American Top Team. I went to MMA Masters. I went to a variety of CrossFit boxes that are down there, which there are plenty of them. I went on all these little mom and pop fitness places. I went there, I knocked on their doors, and I tried to sell myself based on this revolutionary type thinking. Although backed by science, it put into direct question what they were doing and what they were advocating on behalf of their community. So people were actually resistant. Now, I had some success, obviously, but I would have had a lot more success had I not questioned their values and their principles, in regard to their business. So that was a huge issue. That kind of coincides with just poorly defining my business, right? And so looking back, going down the therapy path, although it was possible to break through and actually become successful through that path, my passion on a personal level was in the training aspect. And so when I can get in front of people and train them, people see my passion, they latch on, they can tell that I know a lot, and people want to flock to that. And so I was I was setting myself on a course to go down therapy when really I should have prioritized the training aspect, and then built a clientele based on the training clientele to then treat and rehabilitate based on my relationships with that particular clientele. So that would have been a better route for me to go. But again, I was trying so hard to change the industry and change the way people were thinking about rehabilitative exercise and sports performance and human performance as a whole that, I got blinded, and it ended up not working out for me. Going along with that, and I already touched on it a little bit, is my inability or my ineffectiveness to target an audience because of the message that I was trying to, or the way in which I was targeting the particular audience through basically bad messaging. It's never a good thing to try to lead people in an overt way. And so there's this dichotomy of overt and covert, and effective leadership is really defined by somebody who can get somebody to do something without them really realizing that you want them to do it, right? So that's kind of a covert leadership, and questioning somebody's values doesn't constitute as covert, right? Like, that's in your face. Hey, you're wrong. You should be doing it this way. Like, you're an idiot. That doesn't work. That doesn't sell. So looking back on it, I would have adopted my business in a training platform. I would have continued to train people, put the little bug in their ear. Hey, well, maybe you should try this. I kind of have some experience with this, and I've had a lot of success. Maybe we should try this maybe a couple times a week or just once a week. See how you like it, see how you respond to it, and then slow play it in order to, again, keep growing your clientele base and keep the demand high. Because then that person's like, man, like, Scott did this thing with me the other day, and I felt really, really good, and we've been doing it now for a couple weeks, and you should really check this guy out because you're having some similar issues too, right? So that's a better way to do things. So again, that's sort of the slow play and that long-term mindset versus the short-term here and now type mindset. Ultimately, I had a decent business going. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was highly unorganized. And that sort of stemmed from not really being ready to step into being a business owner, because I wasn't necessarily expecting to, I guess, right away. I thought I was going to go down this path with this gentleman. And so I was sort of leaning on him to handle those administrative tasks and all the finance pieces and all of those types of things. So I wasn't really ready to adopt that. And I also had no training. I didn't have any school. I didn't have any business acumen, nothing. So I sort of just, hey, what's the rent? Okay, cool. I think I can cover that. Let me try to get some people. I had a couple people at the time. Let me roll with it, right? And that's sort of how I did it. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm not getting a lot of people right now, so let me create a membership program. Okay, cool. Well, now I can offer discounted rates, discount my hourly rate if you commit to a longer term plan. And I sort of was doing this on the fly. I was figuring out as it goes, hey, what will people pay me? What will, how much time do people want to on average spend, in a one-on-one setting? I can't make a session hour and a half. I can't make a session 10 minutes. Okay, so it's going to be 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Like, these are things that I just didn't really think about. How am I going to charge? I don't even know. Do I have to get, whatever that little slip thing is that you put on the end of your phone? I ended up having to get one of those. I forget what it's called. All these little things that you don't really think about, you just sort of take for granted when you walk into a business, and you just sort of have this expectation. Well, it's like all of a sudden now I have to figure out what those things are, and then how to implement them and how to manage them. And so it was a super, super challenging task. So some of the things I would have done different, and I kind of talked about them already, but I'll just highlight them again, is better defining my business, better understanding the market, right? In South Florida, there's a ton of performance centers, especially as it relates to athletes. And in those performance centers, they have chiropractors, PTs, OTs. They have it all. I mean, a lot of these are one-stop shop for these athletes, and that was really the goal that I sort of set for myself. So it had been and I actually did a couple internships at a particular performance center, which was arguably one of the best performance centers in the country. I actually had the ability to look at that from the inside, but I just wasn't able to step back and detach myself from my own aspirations and I guess ego to go, hey, you know what? I have to slow play this. Looking at these guys that have been in business for 20 years is not the same as where I'm at right now. And so it's not necessarily how can I replicate what they're doing. It's how do I get to where they're going, or how do I get to where they're at, in a sustainable way. They have a budget now. They have the tools. They have all the workout equipment. They have all the tables, whatever. You can't implement the things that they're implementing because you're not at that level. So that's an important thing to think about as you're looking at another business to emulate or model. You have to take that into account. Where are they at and how do they get where they're at? Because it might not be the same approach for you, although you do want to get to that end state. The lack of long-term vision. As I'm looking at this business that I'm starting now, DotMil gear, I'm trying to look at it from a long-term perspective. It's like, I'm not worried about getting 10 or 20 sales today. If I get a sale a day, great, but I'm trying to build a long-term vision with long-term action. That's why I started the podcast. That's why I went down the coffee route. I don't want to just do apparel. I've got to broaden out a little bit, and I've got to create an interest in my product. And that's why I'm doing the podcast. I want to highlight other veteran businesses. Okay, well, that's why I got to create this podcast. I've got to create a message. Once people start latching onto the message and the narrative, then they're like, hey, I want to support this guy. I want to support this business, right? Like that's sort of how I'm operating. I'm not looking to make tons of money in the first year. This might be a 5 or 10 year thing. I'm just in it for the long haul, whatever it is. Like I want to help other businesses, and I want to help myself make money and become financially free and independent of working a normal job, right? So that might take time, and something that you should think about too. There's a lot of get rich quick schemes. You'll see a lot of these ads on YouTube in between on these videos or podcasts that you're watching. It's like, oh, I'm Johnny so-and-so, and I'm making $5,000 a day sipping Mai Tais on the beach and in whatever, in the Caribbean. Yeah, go pound sand, bro. Like, that's not real. I'm not buying into that. It's just not going to happen, right? So get out of that mindset. Take it slow. Look at everything in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? That's the approach that I'm taking. There is no fast way to get rich, right? Or fast way to success, whatever that means for you, because it's a personal definition. So keep that in mind. As far as the marketing and the messaging and all that stuff, again, coinciding with what I was talking about, the long-term strategy is, I was out there and knocking on doors, that's something that you hear a wide array of people who are massively successful and entrepreneurs say, you got to get out there, you got to sell your product. And I was out there doing my thing. I mean, it was uncomfortable. I didn't want to do it. I didn't know what to say. Oftentimes I messed it up. I probably sounded like an idiot. I made PowerPoints. I went down to MMA Masters, which is a huge gym down in Doral, Florida. I would consider it a competitor, one of the main competitors of American Top Team and Henry Hoof Gym. I made these guys a PowerPoint. They were Brazilian guys. They didn't really speak, or the one guy I was dealing with didn't speak great English. Like, he didn't really understand what I was talking about. I'm like, dude, I'm going to come back in a week. I'll make you a PowerPoint. I'll make you a presentation. I'll sit down with you. And I did it. I made a whole PowerPoint for him. I sat down with him. I explained it to him, and I eventually got into the gym for a short period of time, but I couldn't connect with the athletes, right? Because, now they've got all this different training to do. And now I'm adding one more thing. I'm trying to get these guys who are on the up and coming or on the up and up. I said that all jacked up. But they're on the come up, and then I'm ultimately trying to turn them into customers, but they don't have money. So, it was a failed effort, but I was out there. It's just to kind of signal to you that, you got to get out there. It's going to be ugly sometimes, and that's just the way it goes, right? Like, you want those experiences. I'm better for having gone to those gyms. I went to another MMA gym down the road from where I was living at. Really small MMA gym. And they had a young black belt jiu-jitsu guy in there, up-and-coming MMA fighter. I trained him a couple times. I'm offering my time for free. I'm just doing what I got to do. And he was a great guy. He ended up getting called to go on the UFC Ultimate Fighter show. He ended up getting there, didn't make the cut, lost touch with him. Next thing I know, I'm looking at him. He's on the Dana White Contender Series, knocking dudes out, gets a contract, and boom, he just fought Matt Brown. His name is Miguel Baez. He just fought Matt Brown, knocked out Matt Brown, UFC legend. So, life's just crazy. You got to get out there and make it happen. You never know what's going to happen. So, that was a miss of sorts, but it was cool. It was a cool experience I can look back on and go, hey, you know what? Like, I almost had that guy, so keep that in mind. Another experience of mine, I got an Instagram message one time from Brandon Marshall from the New York Giants, wide receiver. This guy found me on Instagram. Somehow, I still don't know how. Hey, bro, you still down in South Florida? I got some issues. You want to train? Can you train me? Yeah, bro. Actually, I can. And I already actually happened to work at your gym because he owns a gym down there. And I was working at his gym. And I don't know if that's how he found me, but he never really disclosed that to me. But, so next thing you know, I'm meeting him at the gym. Next thing you know, I'm training Brandon Marshall of the New York Giants. I'm trying to rehab him to get back into the NFL. And that was another avenue. It's a long story, but I met a lot of people through him, and I ended up training a lot of other NFL guys through him, and it was a great experience. But you got to take the risk. You've got to get out there. You got to bite. You're gonna get bit back. You got to stay on the ball and keep rolling. And it's something that I'm doing now. I'm coming on a lot of hurdles. I'm trying to talk to people. I'm trying to get people lined up for the podcast. Some people are looking at me like, really, dude, you got 100 views in your podcast. I'm like, yeah, bro, I got it. But you know what? It's not going to grow if I don't have people on here. So you want to come on or not? So don't get discouraged. Keep the ball moving forward, and good things are going to happen. All right. So what should you guys think about based on all these things that I'm sort of outlining for you? Every business is a slow play until it's a fast play, right? Be aggressive. Be always aggressive, but understand it's a slow play, right? It's not going to get you rich tomorrow unless you have some fantastic invention or some sort of whatever intellectual property that's worth ungodly amounts of money. It's just not going to happen. Slow play. It's not a get rich quick scheme. All right, slow down. Second, identify successful models to emulate. Again, I already touched on this earlier. Keep in mind where they're at relative to where you're at chronologically, right? If they're 20 years in, you're not going to be able to do the things that they're doing right now, right? It's the same thing with fighters, right? You want to become John Jones? Well, you can't just do John Jones moves right now. You got to learn wrestling at the elementary level and then progress your way up. You got to learn jiu-jitsu. You got to learn striking. You got to learn Muay Thai. These things take time. It takes experiences. It takes failures. So keep that in mind. Brilliance in the basics, right? I sort of jumped around, I think, a little bit in the beginning, but I think I highlighted some issues concerning my marketing strategy, concerning the setup of the business, the prioritization of services, right? I didn't have an extensive therapeutic background, so that's something I should have looked to have slow played, right? And really let the training apparatus or the training platform take the lead, right? Brush up on that. Make sure I'm good to go in there. I always have a steady income stream from my training And then on top of that, then I can start to implement the therapeutic side of things and get people to either double dip or to refer out to other people. Hey, I know this guy. He did this work on me. It was great. It was fantastic. I saw a lot of results. Boom. Oh, by the way, I'm training you. Well, you know what? You should let me train you too, because I can train you progressively so you don't get hurt, so you don't end up in this position, and work the angle that way. So brilliance in the basics. Know your market. Do your market research. Understand your target. Understand the cost of goods. Understand whatever, if you're selling something, how much those goods cost, right? What your profit margins are. How are other people targeting the audience that you're trying to target? All those things. Understand those things inside and out. It's something that I'm trying to do now, looking back on it. Know your why, and always decide based on your end state. Again, this is sort of that dichotomy between short-term and long-term. Have the right reasons why you're doing something. For me, it's to get other veterans to explore being business owners so they can control their financial destiny, right? There's a lot of us get out. We don't have school under our belt because we just did 4 years straight out of high school or some degree of that, or you got a year of college, whatever it is. And you go to get out, you're an infantry guy. Well, you have no real skills to put on a resume other than, hey, I deployed 3 times and, I did this and I did that. And it's like, well, that's great, man, but we are a financial, planning institution. So I don't know what you want me to do. So ultimately, that's my goal is to encourage and inspire entrepreneurs so you guys can take control of your financial freedom, your lives, your family, and do your thing. That's my why. I want to see that happen. I think there's going to be a great trickle-down effect. If we can get this thing going, you're going to see guys that are committing suicide who maybe won't, because maybe they didn't lose the job because they have their own company, right? Or they're employing other veterans, or they have purpose now, right? They have ownership in something. In the military, you have ownership in your platoon or your squad or your fire team, whatever it is. Like, you get out and that stuff goes away, and then you lose your purpose, right? And then you're left struggling. Now you got PTSD you're dealing with, you got all this other stuff you're dealing with. You got no unit, right? You can create your own unit through your own business. You can create that team, you can create that mindset, you can create that warrior type spirit and ethos. You can do that through business. And that's what I want to do. Last thing, thank you for all the support on the podcast number 2. Thank you to all who have supported the business. I really appreciate it. Please help me, spread the word. Please give this video a like. It would really help me out a lot. Also subscribe. That's huge for me. It helps me grow, helps me get out there. It gives me credibility when other eyes land on the video and they're like, oh, look, this guy's got 1,000 subscribers. It must be pretty legit. I know I do that. I see the amount of views and I'm like, oh, that one's only got 1,000 views. I'm not watching that. Oh, that one's got 7,000. Okay, I'll watch that one. Right? So just help me out, please. Take the video, share it to Facebook, share it with a friend. Doesn't even have to be a veteran. All right, like, this is really for anybody. This is just my experience that I'm just trying to document. All right, so I thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. If you haven't watched episode 2, watch episode 2. You can visit us at our website, www.dotmilgear.com. All right, visit us on the Instagrams, .mil_gear, and you can visit us on Facebook, .milgear. Thanks, guys. Stay motivated.